Hello and welcome back. This is Marie-Lise Schläppy, and if you remember from last video, we talked about the theory of positive disintegration, and last one was just a teaser to tell you about the different factors that are at the core of this theory. And in this video, we're going to have a look at the different levels. There are actually 5 levels in this theory, and they are basically helping predict where a person would go from the stage they're at if they are on a journey to develop their personality. So unlike other theories where levels are something that you go through sequentially and that pretty much everybody goes through them, in this theory it's not necessarily the case. You might simply find yourself at a level, and the theory predicts what would happen if you went down one or...
Level 1 is called primary integration. The specificity of this level is that the person experiences no inner conflict. The values of that person are predominantly based on their biology. That means the need to feed, the need to seek shelter and to reproduce, and by the rules of the social groups that they belong to. And so at this level, there's no real perception that there is a difference between what is and what should be, and that those two things are not the same, and there's no attempt at reconciling the two. That means the perceptions are rather uniform, and there are no real alternative to distinguish from in their own behavior or looking at other people's behavior, and the actions are therefore relatively automatic and based on stimulus. The beauty of this level, though, is that it's very well integrated. Because of the absence of inner conflict, these people are predictable, they are can be relied on to behave in a certain way, and if they are well-meaning towards people, for example, at other levels that are disintegrating, they might be really a resource that one can use to help those people who are in disintegration.
Level 2 is called unilevel disintegration. In the theory, it says that this level is not a stable one. And by that we can understand that nobody really stays at that level for a long time, unlike the other levels, for example. And basically that level is characterized by a lot of inner conflict, but it is inner conflict that the person does not really know that they're having, and it's very uncomfortable. And so the likelihood is that from level 2 you'll precipitate into level 3, which is spontaneous multi-level disintegration, or you'll revert back to a level 1, which is primary integration, which is much more comfortable because there are no sign of inner conflict in level 1. And so that level 2 basically is a short transition that you might go through, and it might be brought about by external circumstances in your life. And if that's the case, it might be just that it's a little time in your life. It's not going to last all that long, and a lot of people would just revert back to level 1 where they're integrated and where inner conflict doesn't exist anymore.
Level 3 is called spontaneous multi-level disintegration. At this level, there is a lot of inner conflict. The values of the person are based on biology and rules of social groups, but also they're starting to change and become the person's own values, and these emergent values are sometimes potentially in conflict with the old ones. And there is a sharp perception that what is and what should be are really not the same, and there's anguish at not being able to reconcile the two. This level is multi-level, and that's where the person can see their ideal behavior and ideal set of values, and they see the values they currently have and maybe the behavior they're currently showing, which are not the same, and they might be disappointed with themselves for not being able to choose the higher version of themselves and to choose the best one. This probably leads to people being at odds with family, friends, and society generally, and it's a very uncomfortable level. But Dabrowski says it's positive because the person has the ability to develop towards a higher version of themselves if they have reached that stage. And he says that not everyone has this ability or this opportunity, and that symptoms of disintegration such as anxiety or depression are actually a very, very positive sign that the person is on their way to a higher version of themselves.
Level 4 is called directed multi-level disintegration. At that level, the inner conflict still exists, but the person can act most of the time according to their inner values, and they are mostly able to maintain this cohesiveness of behavior around the values that they've built for themselves, and can stick to those values and act according to them the majority of the time. It is the level that is after level 3. So level 3 is very disruptive. Level 4 is much more calm. The person has kind of found their mark between their own values and the rest of the world, and they're striving to act according to them all the time, but it doesn't necessarily work all the time. And so that's why there's still some inner conflict. In this position, the person can clearly see what is and what should be, and they can reconcile the two, and basically they're on their way to level 5. Level 5 is called secondary integration and is the final level of the 5 level of the theory of positive disintegration. And at that level, everything is integrated. So it's a very stable level. But Dabrowski was saying that very few people actually reach that level, because that means that the person acts according to their self-made values that they have built up around the understanding that what is and what should be is not necessarily the same, and they're trying to reconcile the two, and they are basically at that level able to 100% of the time act according to their own self-made values. There are no numbers about how many people could reach that stage. There are a number of studies, case studies of people who are thought to have reached that level, but sorry to say, it's probably not for most of us. It's somebody very special who is a level 5 basically, and that's the wrap up of this little video about the 5 levels of the theory of positive disintegration. My name is Marie-Lise Schläppy, and I'd like to meet you again in the next videos to talk about another part of the theory called dynamisms.